Welcome to sunny Los Angeles. We're here today to film a big group of cars, but we're starting with one of my all-time favorite sub $100,000 sports cars, the 981 generation Porsche Boxster GTS. I think technically I'd prefer a Cayman GTS just because it's more rigid and I prefer how the coupe looks, but driving dynamics wise, the Boxster GTS is 99% of what you get with a Cayman, with one big pro, which is the ability to go top down and listen to that glorious sports exhaust. We're not going to drive with the top down today to preserve audio quality, but I'm still going to cover all the things I love about the 981 generation and specifically the GTS. So this is a 2016 model year. The owner Nate picked this up not too long ago, and it's basically completely stock with the exception of some wheel spacers front and rear. The fronts are actually 10 mil, the rears are a massive 17 millimeters. And that's because this car is optioned with the X73 Sport suspension, instead of the standard PASM adaptive dampers that the GTS models came with. This one sits about 10 millimeters lower, and it's non-adaptive. And because it's lower than the PASM setup, the inset of the stock wheels is even more noticeable, so that's why he added the spacers. This car also has the optional PTV, or Porsche torque vectoring. We're powered by a 3.4 liter 9A1 naturally aspirated flat six engine. It makes 330 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque, which is interesting because those are almost identical numbers to my old 997.1 base Carrera. This just has 5 more horsepower. But this has a red line of 7,800 RPM. I believe this was the highest revving Boxster until the Boxster Spider came out, or maybe it has the same red line as the 981 Boxster Spider. Obviously nowadays we have the 718 Spider and Spider RS, which rev higher, but at the time this was pretty spicy because in some ways Porsche finally delivered what customers wanted, a 981 generation with a powerful and high revving engine. This has strut front and rear suspension, which is a limitation of every single generation and trim of Boxster and Cayman. This one is spec'd out with a 6-speed manual transmission. The overall spec is quite basic, but it's nice. All black interior, power adjustable sport seats. That's about it. It's a pure driving machine, and that's why Nate bought this. So let's take this thing for a drive and remind ourselves why the 981 GTS is one of the best driving sports cars under $100,000. Oh, he's got this key already here, so I can leave the actual key in my pocket. So we're gonna go into sport mode because that opens up the Porsche sports exhaust, but also lets us rev match our own downshifts. All right, because we're at a tunnel, I'm going to crack the window just a little. Listen to this. Turn up the sound. Yes, that is stock exhaust, ladies and gentlemen, stock. This so clearly sounds better than the 718 GTS 4.0. And you know what? 330 horsepower feels adequate. This is not an underpowered car. Because this only weighs about 3,000 pounds, 330 horsepower is plenty. It gives a good power to weight ratio, about 9 pounds per horsepower. And right away, that amazing mid-engine balance of every generation of Cayman and Boxster is showing itself here. Even though we're on strut front and rear suspension, which is not ideal for handling or ride quality, this feels so sharp. But ultimately, it's still a road car. It's got excellent compliance. Even with the X73 suspension, which is stiffer in spring rate compared to PASM, I have no complaints with this in terms of how it rides. My only complaint is that the gearing is really long. I say this in every single Porsche manual review. But look at that, the second gear. Oh my goodness, I don't even want to say what number that was at the top of second. but it's too long. It's just too long. I wish it were 10% shorter, at least. I talked about doing a shorter final drive in my NSX last year, and that was less than 5% shorter. This truly needs 10%. The car just feels so stable, so easy to drive and neutral. The steering might be a weaker point of this generation. The 981 was the first generation to have electric power steering, and Porsche hadn't quite dialed it in yet. So this is a little bit lacking in terms of feedback through the wheel. It's very precise, very sharp, just not a ton of information about the road coming through. The way it weights up though, very nice. And the way you can lift off throttle mid-corner to get the nose to tuck in makes this car really enjoyable. It's approachable, but also very enjoyable for the experienced driver. Really good brake feel, nice solid brake pedal with excellent modulation. A Porsche trait, even if you get a base Boxster Cayman or 911. And that's what I love right there in that second gear corner. The ability to get on the throttle early while still maintaining a balanced front versus rear. Older 911s, and even to some extent the 991, when you get on throttle too early, you feel that nose get light and the front end starts to wash out a little. This car does not do that. It feels at canyon speeds like the more balanced car. Excuse the silence, I'm just really enjoying myself. And the way this engine sounds at the top end, even with the windows up, the top up, that induction sound behind my head is so good. It's so soulful. It's not super high pitched. Listen to that. Oh, there's the rev limiter at 7,800. That sounds so good. I think the first time I reviewed a 981 Boxster GTS, I drove it with a top down, and I came away thinking it might be the best sounding car under $100,000. In fact, I think that's what I put in the video thumbnail or the title. But right now, I'm having the exact same thought. This 6-speed manual, very easy to use. You will not miss-shift this 6-speed. The throws are just the right distance apart, not super mechanical in terms of the action, but better than average. Not much to complain about the shifter. It's really just the gearing that's a bummer. Luckily, we're out here on a nice, wide open canyon road where we actually can wind the engine out. But on a tighter, more technical road, this would become a little bit of a buzzkill. But that aside, such a good car. Gold standard. Actually, if we're talking sub 100,000, I guess the 981 GT4 technically falls under that price range. But if you're talking less than $80,000, it's a no-brainer. So big shout out to Nate for letting me review this 981 Boxster GTS. Let me know what you think about this car. What cars would you cross-shop this against in the sub $80,000 range? M2 CS, M2 competition with mods, maybe an older Porsche Cayman R from the 987 generation. Let me know what your pick would be. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.